project, Hemet Logistics West. We're grateful that you're here, and we appreciate that you've taken the time to do this. So I'd like to just introduce myself really quick. I'm Marlo, and I'm the community outreach representative for this project. So you'll see me a lot or hear from me. Not a lot, I promise. If you signed in, I won't bug you, I promise, but I will thank you for attending tonight. And then if there's any new information, I will definitely share that with you. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, the sign-in sheets are in the back. Please do so when you leave. There's also a frame back there that has our email address in it. Please make note of that. So after tonight, if you have any other questions, you can always ask us. And we'll be able to answer those as quickly as we can. And if you have any other comments, we welcome your comments. We're here tonight to hear your feedback. That's why we're here. We're so glad to see so many of you here. And let's see, so we're gonna start with a very short presentation just to kind of tell you what has happened since last time. Maybe some of you have heard about this. And once we finish with the presentation, if you see at the perimeter of the room, there are some boards set up and there are stations set up. And we have those stations for you to ask us or share specific comments or questions about specific things maybe related to your home or just specific questions that you have. So there's environmental is over here behind me, and at that station you can actually just comment on the environmental part of the project because those studies are not complete yet. And some of you may remember Connie, she was here before, she'll be back there to answer any questions, mostly just to hear your comments because it's not done yet. We also have a site plan station, community benefits, and the last one, traffic and circulation. So if you're interested in hearing what traffic might look like, head back to the traffic station. I'm sure that'll be a busy one. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Jeremy with EPD Solutions, and he's going to walk you through the project. Thanks again for coming.
Great, thank you, Marlo, and Jeremy Kraut, and want to just first thank you. There's a lot of people here, really appreciate everybody spending the time on the evening to come listen to us. I do want to also thank Becky and Mike for helping this get scheduled and organized. It is an effort to get this all organized, and we can't do it without them. So, and I know that they helped with the outreach, or rather noticing, to get the word out about this meeting. So, and thank you to Becky especially for that help. And so I'm going through this presentation. Marlo said it's short. We do have a lot of slides that I have to get through, or I'd like to get through. And I'm going to do my best to go through in a measured pace so that I don't go too fast, but I also want to keep moving so that we can have that chance for each of you to go to the stations to get more specific details. My intention tonight is that we can give you information. The stations that you'll have a chance to go to afterwards is where you can get into a little bit more of the detail. An open discussion or questions could really take an entire evening. With everybody here, I'd want to give everybody a chance to speak, but that is just not reasonable or feasible with the time that we have for this room. So what I'd like to do is, at the end, I'll break us up, and you can go to the stations and ask the people there at those stations about your specific questions. So we have experts. Is that better if I'm closer? Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. I hear the speakers in my ears, and I thought it was loud, so thank you, Connie. Yeah, it's hard to tell with the speakers right here. So I will do my best to stand this close to the microphone. If I step away to point to something, I'll come back to this. But yeah, please raise your hand if I am not speaking loudly enough or clearly enough, and I'll pause and go back to what I said before. So, like I said, I'm going to go through this presentation, relatively measured pace. We'll break at the end and then go to the stations. You'll see a number of us that are here. There's Megan, Connie, who you just saw up here, Sam, Emilio, Marlo, and Jeremy. So we have a number of people here. Really the intention is to give you a chance to come speak to us. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll do my best to do this. Thank you. Okay, so overview. So we talked about the scoping meeting that happened number of months ago. That was an overview and then an intention to say we are requesting your input. This is further a chance for you to give input. We know that this outreach effort is not just a one and done process. We really try to get more input along the way. And we're not at a point where there's a public hearing on this, where there's a decision maker in front of you. That happens at the Hemet City Council, Planning Commission and City Council. That's not what this is, so you don't have decision makers here in front of you. You have people that are analyzing the project, reviewing the project, and ensuring that it's meeting the standards that are required for the project. So that's who we are, and we're here to give that information out so you're aware of what the project is about. So for this presentation, I'm going to hit on a number of topics here. You'll see them here. I don't plan to read everything on the slides. If there is something you can't read or you want me to point out specifically, just pause and say, read that. I will. I do my best to just give information on the slides, but just hit the overview of them, and then again, we'll get into more details when you go to the stations. So, but this one I'll just do the overview. It's introductions. We'll talk about the industrial land use that's planned. You may be aware of a moratorium that's in place, so we'll relate it back to the moratorium and the project. Go over the project, talk about community benefits, and then we'll go to the question and answers at the stations. So for the introduction, I'm going to talk about the user, the planned tenant of the building. The tenant itself, so this is the buildings are designed and go through a process with the city of Hemet to review them. And I'm just giving this overview for those of you who aren't aware of the process. There's environmental analysis that is done, but the designs and the engineering and the architecture are done by professionals that work in this industry and know about this. So, but they're doing it on behalf of a tenant that ultimately would fill the building. That tenant would not fill the building until after the planning process that we're currently in. There's construction permitting, and then there's interior improvements. They call them tenant improvements to prepare the building for the tenant. The tenant itself is FlexiSpot. And so they're a globally operating company. They have headquarters in Irvine, and they're a leader in the ergonomic product research, development, and manufacturing dedicated to really enhancing the workplace and home wellness with these ergonomic solutions. So they're often known for the stand-up desks and other ergonomic desk and office furniture that a lot of businesses use. They also you see a picture of a bed with ergonomic features as well. And so they have an innovation center as well. And so with this facility that they're planning, they would have innovation that's in the building, that's R&D testing, as well as customer engagement, sales, and marketing. And of course, another element to it that I'll touch on in a minute as well, they have a customer-facing area where you can pick up the product that people order as well. Can people still hear me okay? Okay, great. I'm doing my best to stay close, thank you. So as far as the project overview, you heard about the last meeting. It is still intended to have, it was designed with specific consideration for the community here and a lot of the city standards. Also, a number of other standards that are best practices in design. And so I'm going to go into those in a bit in more detail, but the intention there was to really consider with community. We received the community feedback at the last meeting as well and adopted or incorporated that within the plan. We know where we're located, but just in case we're not familiar, the aerial just shows the outline of the site. Importantly, you see in the red, the site, there is a space between the site and the solar facility that is existing out there. That's intended for a road that is planned within the project. That's a required road that the city is requiring the project to build between that to allow access to the site. And then on that diagonal at the bottom of the screen, which is the south end of the screen, you see that there is quite a bit of space between that property line and the airport. So there is a space there that's owned by the airport or and it is not controlled by the property owner here. As far as the land use is concerned, so the land use on the site, it does have a commercial designation as well as a manufacturing or an industrial designation, and then a business park which allows industrial. Also, the zoning has the same business park and commercial. Both of those uses both of those zones in general plan allow for warehouse fulfillment centers. And I'll note that back in the late 2000s, the site actually was entirely zoned for M2 manufacturing or heavy general manufacturing. So that was the intended use back in the 2007-2008 timeframe. There was a change because of an owner at that time was considering a commercial use at that north end of the site. That was abandoned just because of the great financial crisis, and that project that was intended for the site never came to fruition. There always was an intention for industrial uses though on the site, just given the proximity to the airport and other and the plan for industrial in this general area. So I mentioned the city moratorium. The city did put in place a moratorium. The city's moratorium did have, and so I mentioned this just in case that was been in the you've heard about this. There are specifics to the moratorium that I won't go into, but importantly, the moratorium had an exemption for projects that were already submitted in the planning process. This project was well in advance of that, so it was submitted back in kind of at the end of 2022. I mentioned before that, well, I mentioned to someone as well, there is an effort that is really extensive in that early stage, which is a lot of, and Roy, I think mentioned it too, his experience in seeing geotechnical testing that goes on. So there's a lot of testing and analysis that occurs early on and informs the plan, and that helps shape where the design is going. Also, the city gets feedback on their development standards, so all those efforts were going on after the submittal, and then from there, after those efforts are going on and the site plan gets more definition, then we start this environmental review process, which is what that scoping meeting was about and you attended before. Also, so this gives an overall time frame just from the process standpoint. So on the left side of the screen, it shows the submittal and the scoping meeting that I was mentioning in June of 2024. Also, there's a recognition to AB 98, which is the state bill that was intended to protect, that has it's an intention to regulate industrial uses, to consider additional compatibility between industrial uses and residential uses. Those standards have varying components of setbacks and other regulations with them. That was considered, although that happened after the project was submitted, the project already considered a lot of those requirements in them and meets those standards. So I mentioned that only to in case you also have heard of AB 98. That's an important regulation in our business. We consider it a lot in these types of uses. But from here, we have an indication when you see this of January to summer. That's where a lot of the environmental process is going on. We expect sometime this summer that the project environmental impact report, that extensive analysis that's being conducted right now, will be available for your review, and it'll be available to the public. During that time, there will be, you can submit additional formal comments on that environmental impact report, which we would have to respond to those comments. So that is a part of the effort that we have coming up ahead of us. The importance of that is that it's being transparent about a lot of the analysis that is occurring and has been conducted, and then findings behind that, and then again, you are able to make comments on that, which we then respond to. Then later this year, depending on that time frame of when the environmental impact report is completed, and then that time for you to make comments on it, there will be planning commission and city council meetings that will occur. So those are what I mentioned before is the public hearings where you'll have the decision makers of the city considering all of the comments, the environmental analysis, the project, and all the things that go behind this review and analysis process. So that is just an overview of the process ahead of us. So now, as far as the site plan, this is the overview. I do have more specific slides that are pertaining to some of the changes that were made to the plan that I'll get into in a moment. But as far as the overall plan, this is the latest plan that's being considered. And it is, so I think you might have seen in the last meeting, there are 4 buildings. There's a primary building in the north side, the upper part of the page, and then 3 buildings behind it. So the plan has changed in several circumstances I'll mention in a moment. But the intention here, this kind of highlights some of the details behind it. So there are 3 buildings again that's listed there with square footages associated with that. So that's the interior square footage of buildings. And then the max height of the buildings is right below that, so 55 feet for the top building. And then the buildings, apologize for the typo in there, but buildings 2, 3, and 4 are 42 feet. That's max. And then the setbacks are identified there with the dock doors are where the loading occurs, that loading and unloading occurs, which is, I'm gonna step from the mic for a second. So those are dock doors. So I was just pointing for those people online, and I'll use my mouse here. So that's where the dock doors are located. Those are about 394 feet from the property line.
334.
So the face of the pop-outs are 334. That's the edge of what the office buildings that are popped out. So that's 334, and then the face of the dock doors are actually 394. So that it sets back further from that. And that's in the building 1. Now building 2, which is this bottom corner building, that bottom left building, that is flipped the other way to have a wall that's protecting or blocking any activity that would occur. So that moves a little bit further to the west, obviously. That building faces 147 feet away from the property edge, but again, there's no operations that are occurring on that edge. As far as the architectural overview, so this is looking at just an overview, again, from kind of more of a bird's eye view of the site. So this is looking at so it's kind of looking southwest from essentially close to Florida Avenue, 70 forward, but just elevated and looking kind of again southwest. And so what the intention there with this view is looking at is what that frontage, that edge condition is looking like up against Acacia and well, I guess Florida a little bit behind that. But what it does show is that there's an intention there to have office appearing uses on that. So that's the ends are where the offices are located, and then carrying across a number of architectural features to break up the edge facing that north direction. And then this is one of the primary entry areas, and then again, trying to create a lot of glass and glazing, which glazing is the glass element of it, and some architectural element just to create a nice edge condition facing the northern direction. They intend, because this is a facility that's built for the tenant, as a business is concerned, they want to be there for the long term, and so they have really tried to focus on high level design and quality, and they want this building to last. So they have high quality elements throughout the building to ensure that longevity. And then from a landscaping perspective, which is really important to really kind of bring the project together, the project has a significant amount of landscaping that is really intended to create nice soften the edge conditions, also create nice buffers for the community. Oh, okay, I'm being told to speak up, so I'm gonna walk a little bit closer without bumping the mic. So the intention that I was mentioning is to have a lot of landscaping throughout, especially on that northern edge that's facing Acacia, but then also on the western edge that's up against your community. And so we'll get into that setback in a moment, but you can see throughout here landscaping that's highlighted. The landscaping required for the city of Hemet is 15%, which is about equivalent to 60,000 square feet. So again, pretty large amount overall, but the project goes well beyond that to 20% of the project site. And so the overall project does have a significant amount of landscaping that includes what I show here are a couple of the setbacks. So a minimum of 89 foot setback, 650 trees. So they're really incorporating trees to increase the amount of shading throughout the site. And then there are shrubs throughout and ground cover, of course, and accents in various locations. vegetations to, again, soften the edge conditions. This is the view of the building one, so that's the larger building on the northern side, the top part of the site. And this is looking as if you're standing at the edge of the project site up against your community, looking easterly. So you're looking east from your community to the towards the first building that's on the top end of it. And so what previously in the plan that was shown to you before, that did have a basin on this edge, that has been removed, and instead they're going to use stormwater containers. Essentially, they're underground containment units to capture stormwater and then cleanse it, and they get it out to the sewer system or storm system, and storm system, I should say. And so, in place of that, they've been. Is that still clear to you? When I'm standing up here, okay, I'm going to do that instead of create the feedback. So when removing that, it allowed for more landscaping to be placed within this edge, this area, including more trees. When there's a basin, not all the time can you get as many in there because you have to account for stormwater quality. In this case, again, more landscaping was able to be provided in place of the basin. This is, again, you're moving south along the site, so getting closer to the airport along your community edge and looking easterly towards the building 2. So that's that south building, the smaller building that is on that was in the bottom left corner of that site plan I showed you earlier. And so this is, again, that face that is the edge of the building facing the community where there would not be operations. These are just, it's a wall, and then the enhancements were done to the wall to make sure it's not just a big flat wall facing the community, but also, again, trees were added along this edge to soften that edge. Within the setback, this is an illustration, a cross-section of that landscaped area. So this is if you took a knife through that edge and to look at what that cross-section would look like. So on the left side of the screen, you see that is your community, is the intention there is to show that's where the edge of the community is. And then you see what's described here as a property line and fence, just to secure the property. And then there's a slope down to allow for slope up and berm to bring the landscaping up and further hide the property. So this was designed to create more visual obstruction, essentially, to screen the site as much as possible from your community. And so within that area, there's a multi-layered landscape plan, and that has ground cover, shrubs, a small variety and medium variety, and then large shrubs and trees. So there's multi-layer to really try to screen that area of your community from the building, so you really try to create that softer edge condition. This will be accessible by the property owners so that the security can be maintained. We know in some areas, if the landscaping is kind of left to go, there can be people using that's not desirable, but there will be fencing and security maintained within this area. On the very edge condition on the right side of where the landscaping is shown, there is a building, the edge, especially where the building 1 is located, where there's the operations that are set back quite a bit. The wall was increased to 14 feet to really screen anything behind that. So the intention there is for sound attenuation, for keeping the sound in, and screening also on the inside of the dock, the areas where the dock doors that I was showing earlier. South of that, or other areas, it will be 5 foot, it'd be north of that, where the parking lot is. A 5-foot wall is proposed where there's no building, but the intention there is to avoid any type of light that would be coming into your community. So when there's parking going on, sometimes if people are parking head in, the lights can shine. We've planned a wall on that edge to prevent the light from streaming in. And then I mentioned that the fencing, that 8-foot wall is identified here to help secure the property. Lighting is really important, and lighting needs to be screened and with baffles to prevent it from spilling outside the property, so that's what's planned on the project site as well. So there is baffles to prevent lighting from spilling beyond the property line. Construction, so the city has construction hours that are required, so we have to meet those construction hours, and that limits construction to not happening on Sunday, but also there's hours of construction that are limited as well. So that's maintained by the city, enforced by the city, and citations can be issued if that's not maintained. Approximately 14 months of construction is expected, and that will occur on various areas of the site, and that includes not just the site preparation, grading, but also we're talking about the building going up and then landscaping, and that's usually occurring in various stages along the way throughout the 14 months. So at the very end of the project, a lot of it's coming into the buildings or into kind of finishes that are occurring, and then landscaping, of course. So not all the time during that whole time is there bulldozers or anything like that on the site, because that's, at that point, there's gonna be site improvements completed. From the truck routing perspective, so there's, with a building like this, there are two aspects of it. Of course, the people that are working there that are driving passenger vehicles, and then the trucks that are delivering product to the facility and delivering product from the facility to various locations. And so those couple, right now what I'm showing is just about trucks, because I know that's the most sensitive element of the building and the use to you, and I want to make sure that this is clear for you to understand as well. And again, just so that, I know this is hard to see from back there, so I'm not expecting you to see the individual numbers. We do have printed plans that are easier to review, and that you can ask the questions of the people that are here to get the information off of them. So I apologize, it's not very clear here, but it is clear on the printed version. And of course, we can answer the questions once you get there. But one thing just to highlight on this plan, or on the truck route, so on in Florida Avenue, the 100% of the planned trucks to be delivered or coming to the site are coming on Florida Avenue eastbound from the freeways to the site, and then they take Acacia to the site and getting into the property. So they are coming, you can see, I know in this green line, that's Florida. For the people online, this is Florida. And then it's hard to see in this exact area, but there is you're familiar with it probably if you go out there, little change in the road, and then it comes into the property. Costin would be extended on the eastern property of the property line of the property, down the east side of the site, and that's an access point that would be where trucks would come into the property. On the outbound, there was concern identified by the community and by in our review of the project, of projects going out of the project on Costin and then hitting 74 and causing backups in that area. So the change to the plan was to require that trucks would exit the site, go on Acacia East to Sanderson, and then come back around, and then they can use Sanderson or Florida and come back out to the freeways as well. So, I know that there's a lot of discussion here. What I'm going to encourage is that to get further information, it'll be easier to do it at the table where there's somebody that can show it on the plan. I'm being cognizant of, we have people online, so I'm trying not to do too much of the pointing and walking away, but it's, what the intention here is that we'll, again, give the information that we can talk more about at the tables, just so you can have that information in front of you and you can see it. I know the screen is hard to see also the details at this level, so, excuse me. Okay, so traffic comparison, so the project itself is identified here as far as the number of trucks and vehicles on this plan, or related to the plan. So, and we compared it against different uses just for contextual purposes. So a number of projects, all projects have, any type of land use has traffic, and there are a number of uses that are throughout the city that are allowed on this site, and then also in and other land uses within the city. So what we intend to do is just show the types of uses that could be built here or that are built in various areas, just to consider when you relate the same property size of this site to these other uses. So again, if these uses were built on this property based on this, it's about 63 acres or so. So using that same property size to compare them. So when you do that, one thing that's clear, and you can see a very big difference here, and this is just for context, not for saying this is planned here. So commercial uses, they have the most trips, I should say, most traffic, most vehicles, because of the nature of the use. So a lot of retail uses, a lot of commercial uses, grocery stores, restaurants, etc. They have high turnover and fast movement, and so that brings a lot of vehicles to the site. So that's one component to consider when we're looking at traffic analyses. We have to consider these varying uses. Of course, with this project, it does have both vehicles and trucks, and that's important from the standpoint of relating it to other uses as well. So yes, we understand that this project probably has some of the least amount of traffic overall, or least number of vehicles, but yes, the trucks are one of the bigger components to it. I will say that some industrial uses are different than others, and that's important consideration when we do this traffic analysis. So this use is a warehouse logistics use, so a large volume of the building is used to house the products that they're selling and delivering. Not as much of the space is used for many people that are really in the building itself. There are people in the building, we recognize that, and so that's identified here. But some other industrial uses that are considered are business park uses and general light industrial uses, others that have a lot more manufacturing or people in them. And so you can see on this chart that on the left side is the project, and then some of the other uses that I mentioned are to the right of it. So residential, industrial, business park, and I'm going from left to right, general industrial, commercial, and mixed use. So that's all showing on that graph just for contextual purposes.
This is a 24-hour operation.
I do actually have a slide about that. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I do want to mention that as well. So community benefits. So this is an important component just for understanding what the project would be contributing and providing as part of it. And I recognize from a community standpoint, you may be saying, so what is this to me? But we have to bring this up just so that you understand kind of the whole of the project. Hopefully some of this is just for understanding, and then also seeing that some of this will make it to the community and help. As far as there is a fiscal analysis completed for the project, so these are fiscal reports that are completed by a professional who knows about city budgets, and then taxes, property taxes, and then how the business itself will operate, and how the people that are working there will be paid, and how their money will make it in the community, and then a number of other the factors that are considered in their analysis. So this is widely used. Their modeling is used by the city in their own budgeting, and then they complete these analyses to show how this will be addressed within the community. So the fiscal benefit, there's what they did through the analysis is that they determined that at the end of when the use is operating on a yearly basis, we'll have $100,000 this is positive money. So they do use community services or city services, but in the end, there's still a net benefit to the city at the end of it. And when you multiply that times many years of operation, there's a pretty large, substantial benefit to the city because of the business that comes in that's operating within the city. And this is compared to the residential and some uses that don't have any benefit, they drain, they use services more. This one contributes by paying more towards the city as well, and through taxes and other means. There are a lot of impact fees that are paid to offset infrastructure impacts and uses. So roads and others get a lot of the benefits through the fees. There is, despite this being an industrial use, there's education or school fees that are paid, and those fees that go to the school district for them to use in their at the schools. Jobs-wise, there's about 600 jobs that would be occurring on site. These are
robots. That's
these-
it, robots. Only 600.
No, these are people. We do consider that any automation or other uses. These facilities do have a relatively heavy personal component, meaning a human component to them. And I want to mention that this use is not just about storage. They do have, I mentioned the other things, R&D, they have marketing, they have other administrative functions that are required here, and then of course the people to manage the facility itself.
But you said incoming jobs are only gonna be 600, meaning they're bringing in their own people?
No, so they have existing facilities also. This is a new facility, and so they will be doing a jobs fair here that will be required, or that the city wants, that they require condition of approval for the city to, or for the user to hold job fairs and to consider local hiring. And so they do, this is a new facility and they would have to hire for them.
But the number is only 600.
It's about 600 jobs, yeah.
Can you define what it is about marketing? What do you mean by marketing?
Oh, yeah, so, and I'm gonna address these questions, but I realize people online I should have repeated the question. So, the prior question was just about the number of jobs, and asking to confirm that's 600 about the jobs that are either new or just being displaced from other locations. And so a new facility and whether they will have, of course, some people that are within the company itself that are helping hire and bring up the operation at this location. The second question was, I'm sorry, marketing. Yes, what does marketing mean? So any company that is trying to market its product has to, they want to get the word out about what their use is. So these are people that are specialized in what the product is and what needs there are, and then they come up with advertisements and others. So they.
No, I'm not asking you to define marketing. I'm asking you, what do you mean by marketing in that facility?
Oh yeah, so these would be people.
Would it
So
be an agency?
no, yeah. So the marketing component, like a marketing department, they would have people in the building that is managing marketing for the facility, and they will be looking at how they market this facility and market their product. So these are, yeah, and I'm just going through this, and again, some of these questions I think we'd love to address specific, especially at the stations, just
My
because.
chairperson spoke 2 slides ago, you said there were no people in the building. Does anybody else
Oh.
remember that?
Oh, no, there are people in the building, sorry, there are people, no, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear there, but I was saying that this facility would have storage, but that's not the only use in there. So I mentioned that there's office component, and there's also R&D, marketing, there's administrative functions within the building. So there are people, there are definitely people, and there's 600 jobs. So that's the people that are coming to the site to have jobs at this location.
Yeah, how many
These are
jobs
the-
a day are gonna be coming through on Florida right past us?
So yeah, so what a number of these questions, again, these are gonna be very good questions for, like, I heard a question about traffic, so they do have a traffic person that's gonna be there to ask a detailed breakdown of the people coming to the site. So development impact fees, these are fees, again, where the project has to pay these fees to offset the project and improvements. There's water fees, there's fire suppression fees, general facilities fees that go to the city to help pay for city facilities. There's biological fees, there's bridge thoroughfare, these are road improvement fees that are required, and police fees, of course. In the plan, we've considered the good neighbor policy for the city, for the county of Riverside as well. So it's just an element that I mentioned earlier is how the design was addressing plans that are in requirements for buffering and community sensitivity in it. And so the original plan that you saw, this is more specific to the changes that happened since the last meeting that you had. So the previous plan that's shown here, this is the plan that was presented at the last scoping meeting. And with that plan, there's a plan for 10-foot wall. That plan now has changed to 14 foot. So it's increased that wall height to screen more of the operations in that location. So that was intended to address noise concerns and view concerns of the building. Previously, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Is that a true sound wall?
Yeah, so the question was, is it a true sound wall? So it is a block wall. Sound walls are, a true sound wall, it's usually a block wall, something that has mass to it, and so these are concrete block walls that would have the sound attenuation associated with them. Previously on this edge, the western facing edge, there was a plan to address the question about 24/7 operations. There was a plan for 24/7 operations on this edge. Through the analysis and again the feedback, this now will not be allowed to operate at night after 10 p.m. So that is the plan to address this, yeah, so the building itself, they do have 24/7 operations within the building because that's intentional, because they do get orders and fulfillments required on a 24/7 basis. But recognizing the community concern, the owner agreed to reduce those operations on that edge. So that was important they heard the feedback and wanted to make sure they address it.
What are the hours?
Yeah, 10 to 7 where they would not allow operations within that edge condition. And then on the basin, there was, I think I mentioned that basin on that western edge before, and basin being, that's the stormwater quality edge. That's been changed to not have that condition, so it wouldn't have standing water, and there wouldn't be standing water allowed anyway, but it's more landscaping is intended for that area instead of the basin condition that was planned before.
Will the flow be north or south?
The
Flow of the water once it's in your,
yeah, so there are stormwater facilities within the site area, so
Yeah.
it would flow into the site, but it generally has I believe it's south to north, if I'm not mistaken, but the main thing is that there are stormwater facilities within the project site, so like this arrow pointing to the parking lot area, right there, I'll just use my arrow here if you can see it, but there are stormwater, the underground catch basins within those areas. So, and the intention there is again to screen the enhanced landscaping and allowing infiltration to get the stormwater away from the edge condition and into the stormwater facilities on the site. And also again, enhance or increasing that landscaping. There was no block wall planned on the west side of the building too, where there's parking. There is now a block wall, again, what I mentioned before, is to prevent any light streaming from the site into the community. So as far as air quality concerns or questions, the analysis so far has been done that's showing it's meeting the air quality management district thresholds. There are no significant health risks, and that the construction has elevated the use of newer equipment that has higher level of threshold or higher level of diesel containment or emissions containment in them. So it's again to minimize the air quality. There are a number of, for energy efficiency, the owner is really focused on that, and so having charging stations and electrical vehicles on site, so to have regular operations on site. There is a transition to the electric truck fleet. Irregardless of what the state and the federal government is doing, the tenant is intending to use EV trucks, so they are focusing on that heavily. And they're targeting 100% zero emission short haul trucks by 2035. So the intention there, from their perspective, they have adopted sustainability features on top of or over and above what state requirements are.
Yeah, this is assuming that this thing goes forward, but for the first 14 months, if it were to go forward, there is no air quality to be had.
So I think the question, maybe it's more of a statement, but the question is about during the 14 months of construction. So construction there, that's where there's a lot of actually air quality management district thresholds and requirements to ensure that air quality thresholds are not exceeded, and they are committing to a higher level diesel trucks that or equipment that would operate on site compared to some projects. So that is, they're committing to a higher level than typical for air quality purposes.
Well, how would you control the dust and the dirt that is in the
So
air?
and I think the question is about how do you control dust and dirt in the air, and so that's actually again where air quality management district is very strict, and they have extremely high fines if they're not operating at a level that is appropriate. So they, at every project, they do put up signs that say, if you see dust, call this number, and so they do have requirements to fulfill that. So I'm gonna just talk about the next steps, and then we're gonna, again, break to a point where we can have discussions at the tables. And I've been speaking a long time, so I appreciate, again, your patience. You've been really respectful of me, and I appreciate that. I'm trying to get through this just, again, to give you the information that we can have more detailed conversations after. So the next steps are there's additional community engagement. So this isn't, again, this is not the one and done where we disappear. We do have email and phone number access that we've provided. Again, you heard about. We do monitor those. We are intentional about reviewing and getting the comments and getting feedback from you and providing the information. There's an environmental review process that I mentioned that is, you'll have an environmental impact report that will be coming this summer. There are hearings that are required for the project. And then there's that, if approved, yes, it is, again, if approved, it's not guaranteed, but if approved, it'd have construction timeline of the time frame I mentioned.
So in theory, this going on to the two different tables, you can't hear one,
speak.
you can't hear
Sorry.
one side
Please let the
when these
speaker
questions
speak.
are being asked at
So-
another table. So how
Let
can
the
you hear
speaker
both
Thank you, I
sides?
appreciate the comments, it's very kind, I do appreciate that, and we're here we try to get through this just so that you can have more time with people that ask the questions. I know that individually you may have some very detailed questions, we wanted to allow that, but if you don't have a chance, sorry, I'm just gonna finish, get closer now, I know it's stepping away. So the intention is to give you that chance to get more detailed information from us. Also, that's not the only way. You may, if you're shy about coming up or you don't want to, if you don't get the answer from the person, writing something out is perfect. We will be reviewing those, we will be addressing them. This is about having as much information to you as possible. And yeah, Marlo is holding up a form that does have a place to, just a blank form to be able to write the information. We will be reviewing them, that's why we have a number of people here to gather them and address them. And I do really appreciate your respectfulness. I do a lot of these and just try to gather the information. You've been great, and I do appreciate that. We will be available to answer the questions, and I know that this is an overview, so I do look forward to speaking to you more.
Thank you, Jeremy.
So I just wanted to remind everybody of the station. So if you're interested in speaking with Connie and finding out how to give comments on environmental over here. And then in the back over there, I think that's site plan. Back there is traffic and circulation, and over here, actually that might be traffic and circulation, and community benefits. So if you wanna just go to the different stations, just visit all of them, and our team will be here to answer questions.
We're gonna do traffic and circulation.